Hey guys, we're back here at Eastern Shore Talk. I'm Jay Watson,
And I'm Cathy Cassell.
and this is episode 9 of Eastern Shore Talk. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. Thanks for supporting us. If you're new, welcome. Hope you enjoy what we have to talk about, and let's get started. So, Kathy and I have kind of talked about doing something a little bit different this week, and we're going to, since her and I are both kind of born and raised in this area, we're going to talk about kind of what it's been like to grow up in this area, and then we'll kind of transition from that into kind of what's some of the great self-care activities to do here in our area with different things. So if you're not familiar with the Eastern Shore of Maryland, just real quick, Maryland's kind of split into two parts of the state. The Chesapeake Bay kind of divides the state between the Eastern Shore and the Western Shore. Two completely, totally different places. You would think they're two different countries. They're that different. The Western Shore is more urban. You've got Baltimore, Annapolis, D.C. area on the Western Shore. It's much more populated. The Eastern Shore is all rural. I think the biggest town is Salisbury, and it's probably only got 25, 30,000 people. It's a lot of small towns all spread out all over the place, lots of farmland. And kind of where we are here in what we call the mid-shore, we can literally drive 10 minutes in any direction and run into water, a creek or river or something. So it's kind of cool that way. So in our town specifically, I know, Kathy, I was kind of looking back at some of the statistics about Easton. When we graduated high school in 1985, the population of Easton was just over 8,000. It's about 18,000 now.
Really?
Yes. So it's more than doubled since we graduated high school. And if I
I
think
learned
about
something
it,
today.
it's drastically different. Like
Yeah.
it's grown, but it's not grown too big for its britches, if you know what I mean. So we
Depends
can
on
kind
who
of
you ask, I guess, right?
yeah. We call people that kind of move here from other places. We call them transplants. There's a lot of people that are part-time residents who have summer homes or weekend homes. Talbot County is a fairly wealthy county. It's pretty highly ranked nationwide as far as per capita income. There's a lot of former pro athletes and former politicians that live in the area, at least part time. Um, there have been several movies that have been filmed here in the area.
Yeah.
It's been pretty cool. So let's go back to the Easton slash mid shore area growing up. So what kind of when you think back to your childhood or your teen years in this area, kind of what comes to your mind?
Well, I think Jay. Well, I don't know. Are we the same in the fact that I say this? I say this, and I'm actually proud of this. But when I say this to people, sometimes I say I don't know if this is a good thing or a sad thing. But I have never personally lived anywhere but where I live right now. I
Right,
mean, within like a 2 mile radius.
right,
So some people might think that's sad, but my roots are so deep.
right.
So I have not. I've traveled. I've traveled lots of places, but I've never lived anywhere else, and I'm very content with that, and I like it very much. So when I think about my childhood, um, it's very safe, secure kind of feeling. And this is home to me. I was somebody's house last night where there were several of our friends that we graduated high school with. The
Yeah,
fact that I'm the age I am and I can still be around people that I've known my entire life, including you. I
right.
don't know, it gives me a sense of comfort. So if I feel, and this might sound really strange if I think about it. Maybe it is strange, but we're in the age of maps and Google Map, or our cars have navis, and
Yeah.
if you really look at where we are, it's like we're not even attached to the country. There's
Yeah.
like the country, and then there's this
And then
peninsula
we're
that we're
separate.
on,
Yeah,
and then we're in this finger geography of Talbot County,
yeah,
and it's like, wow, we're really just this small little area off of the United States. So, and I look at that quite often, thinking, wow, I mean, we're really. I feel like we're kind of special. I don't know. I feel like we're kind of protected from a lot of things,
Yeah,
including weather and big cities. But we can get to big cities if we want. We can
yeah,
get to the beach if we want. So I've always just really loved where I live, and my dad's from here, his dad's from here, so it's a very generational thing for me.
yeah. So I'm a little bit different. I have lived other places. Um, I moved onto the Western Shore for a little bit over in Severna Park. So I was right there in basically the Annapolis suburbs.
Hmm.
Actually moved away when I was in the service. I lived outside of Chicago for a little while when I was in boot camp and in my first set of schooling for the Navy. I was outside of Chicago in Great Lakes, right on Lake Michigan. And then from there, when I was in the service, went down to Orlando, Florida. So I went from the cold and snow of Chicago to 80 degrees in Orlando,
Wow.
Florida. And I don't know, it just, I'm a warm weather person, but there was something about living there at Christmas time and it was 80 degrees.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like home. Um, I it was great because everything was open all the time because there was nothing seasonal down there because it's always warm down there, so
Yeah.
nothing ever has to close. And Orlando's kind of centrally located in Florida, so I got to watch the space shuttle go off from up close and stuff like that. But it's funny how later in life, when I was out of service, I came back. So this area just is just home and familiar to me. I just growing up here was I don't know. It seems like it was the same place, but because it was so long ago, and I think because of my personal journey, it seems so different at the same time. If that makes sense.
No, I think so too. It's definitely different. We've got, before you had to travel a little bit, maybe 40, 45 minutes to get to real
For
stores, right?
shopping, yeah,
I mean, and I'm not knocking anybody's mom and pop stores that were here because they're certainly really cool. And the older you get, the more you appreciate what goes into being a small business owner in an area like we are. But and I know there's always controversy with that. Do people like big box or people not like big box stores? But I mean, I've become very lazy, and if I don't have to go, and Jay, you just recently moved, and you're going to get as lazy as me. If you don't have to drive very far,
yeah,
you kind of get really used to that.
yeah. It's nice because, like I say, we're in such a small town, and although traffic certain times of the day can get a little tricky to go just a couple miles, it's well. One of the good things about where I live now is I'm not having to go out onto the bypass through town to go
Yeah,
home towards St. Michael. So now everything's in town. So
yeah.
I know yesterday the whole movie excursion was like really cool because I didn't have to fight that intersection there at McDonald's across from Acme, that
Look,
whole thing, and
you're
the
you're
traffic.
small town right now because somebody that doesn't live around here is probably laughing. I didn't fight the intersection at McDonald's.
But just in proportion to what we have to deal with, that I was like,
Yeah.
man, I don't have to deal with that. But I just remember, you know, growing up, especially in the town of Easton, kind of every neighborhood within Easton, and Easton, like I said, it was only 8,000 people back then, but
Yeah.
kind of every neighborhood kind of had its own little identity. It was kind of like a little community within the
Hmm.
whole town, and like with me, growing up with a bunch of kids my age and playing sports, it was very competitive. We would go to school and like challenge the Elyville neighborhood to a baseball game or football or whatever, and it was just, I guess, it was maybe because I didn't know any different. Like I had probably 8 or 10 kids within a year or two of me within 2 blocks, so I could
Right.
ride my bike.
You had
Yeah,
instant friends.
so it was kind of cool that way. And I know kind of and it's probably not unique to just Easton or the Midshore area. Was um, once we got our license, that tradition of rolling the bowl,
Rolling the bowl.
riding around town. And if
Yeah.
now folks across the country our age or older, especially because it kind of started back in the 50s
Yeah.
nationwide,
Yeah. Right.
used to wash your car and ride around town and pick up girls if you were a guy, or if you were a girl, you were trying to look your best to so the guys would notice you, and so that was it wasn't
Or
unique
whose
to our
car you're in. It was important
yeah
whose car you position
it
yourself in.
wasn't unique to our
Yeah.
area. That happened all over the country, but kind of how it evolved here was back then, um, and it was called rolling the bowl because, from what I was told, back in the 50s and 60s when it first started here in our area, the bowling alley was kind of the hub that people rode around. So it kind of
Yes.
riding around the bowling alley got short to rolling the bowl, or that's how that name came about.
Hmm.
And as we know, the bowling alley itself became less of where you
Right.
could see the bowling alley from where we were driving, but it was this kind of circuit, and you drove the same circuit all night long. And we were underage, and we would have beer in the car or whatever. We would go sneak out of town for a few minutes and go drink a beer, so the cops that were sitting around town in strategic locations wouldn't see us. Or we would go um, meet up with our quote girlfriend or boyfriend outside of town and do whatever. And then it all kind of evolved back to riding around town.
And
And
it was music too, right? You
oh
know,
yeah, and it's
music you
funny,
have on in your car.
you would you would hear the same song because we would all listen to the same radio station if you were listening to the radio instead of a cassette back then.
Right.
And if it was weather where your windows were down, you would ride around. It was like a concert of the same song around the whole town because everybody's radio was tuned to the same
Same
station.
stations or whatever,
Because
right?
we would only get 3 or 4 stations back then because of where we
Right.
live. We would get a couple of Baltimore stations and maybe a DC station, and that was it.
B104.
Yep.
You remember that?
Yep. Or we would listen to that, and like everybody would have that song would be playing in the whole town
Right.
at the same time. It was just I don't know. And again, that kind of stuff wasn't unique to Easton, but like how we did it, kind of where we did it, and it was kind of Talbot Town and the Trailer
Yeah.
Run Shop Center and Marlboro Avenue were all kind of linked, and they're
And if you
basically
went to the Y, it was that was the outskirts.
yeah.
If you
You go to Y, or if you were
yeah.
gonna like pull over to talk to somebody, you go to the Firehouse parking lot, or you go to Acme parking lot by the old photo hut that's not even
I
there
didn't. I
anymore.
didn't. Yeah, the photo. But
Excuse
I
me.
always laugh too, and we still do it today. I'll say, "I'm gonna go in town." Don't you
Yes.
say that too? I'll be
Yeah.
back to go in town.
Although we were already in town
Yeah.
physically.
And it's like, but everybody knows what that means. And I often think, we've got Matt here from Australia. Does he know what we're talking about when we say we're going to go in town? We're going to go
Right.
in town. We're going to
Right.
go to town. We're going to go in town.
Or we'd say, I'm going to go ride around town. We were already physically in the town. It's that
Right.
small. But it
but
was like it was a
but it
separate
meant the
thing.
town. Like you're
Yeah.
going where the stores were. You're going in town.
Yeah. We're the actual people of the town. Like,
And remember
got
too,
gathered together.
we'd go to the movies too. We'd go to the movies and
The
pick people at
Avalon.
the movies.
That was back before the current theater that I
Yeah.
go to now. There was the Avalon Theater, just a kind of an old school, right smack in town movie theater with the booth out front with the glass, and you put your money through the glass. The old school movie. And it had the balcony, and you didn't want to sit underneath the balcony because people would throw popcorn on you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's fun. As I've gotten older too, and I've gotten in, I working at Channel Marker and been there a long time, and I've gotten into a leadership program that I would love for you to get in one day, Jay. Shore Leadership, and as I'm in Shore Leadership, part of what we do with whatever current class we have is we go around to different counties of the shore of the Eastern
right.
Shore of Maryland. Our hometown is one of them as well, but it's always fun to go and do that sort of thing because even though we've been here, we're from here, we're not come here's. There's so much we don't know about our local counties, and we
Yeah,
think we do. I can even think of trips where you think there's farms around, so you think we know everything about farms because we live near farms, and then you go sit into a session where you're hearing farmers or watermen, whatever, really tell their story, and you're like, wow, I had that wrong. I
right.
made a lot of assumptions. So even though I've been here all my life, I feel like I'm always learning. And I feel like I get more proud the longer that I'm here. I fill with pride, and as new people come or visitors come, and they're like, "I'm really starting to like Easton. I could
Yeah,
live here," kind of thing. I feel like
yeah,
I'm like the mayor, like, "Yeah, come move here. It's the best ever,"
yeah. I,
because it's just, and people are there for you. I mean, if you really need people,
yeah, oh
they're
yeah,
here. They're here. I've seen it over and over again with people that are, in bad situations where they've had a death in the family or someone real sick. People are there for you.
yeah. I get that a lot at the store where people that are part-time residents or that are just moving here,
Oh
and
yeah.
I always perk up and I'm like, oh, well, let me tell you about this about Easton,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
it's like I'm the tour guide.
I
I'm the
know. Or maybe
unofficial tour
maybe
guide,
maybe we're the Chamber of Commerce. We're the
maybe.
volunteer Chamber of Commerce people.
And I'm sure that everybody that lives, well, most places in the country, but especially small towns, kind of they're proud of where they live, as they should be. But there's just something about this area, and part of it is
There's
also like
something
our
about this area.
yeah our graduating class. And look, again, everybody's going to think their high school graduating class is the best ever, and I get it. But
But
there's
ours is the best ever.
yeah, and I don't say that like like as a hey look at us kind of thing. It's just I see examples of it all the time with just how
Hmm.
like you post like you were saying earlier, you posted on Facebook about you were at a friend's house last night, and I saw the pictures, and they're all people that we or most of them are people that we graduated with,
Yeah.
or and it's it's just to kind of grow up together
Yeah.
from elementary school, most of us, all the way through now much older than elementary school. It's just it's kind of cool when to watch people's kids grow up and do things,
Yeah.
and watch people start and have successful businesses in the area and
Yeah.
be community leaders. And it's just like our high school class was just unique, and even people from other classes that went to
Hmm.
our high school will tell you the same thing. Like they're like, oh yeah, 85 was just there was just something about 85. um
Something about 85.
yeah, it's just yeah,
Yeah. We had the
it's
best movies, the best music, the best class.
yeah.
We're
Even
proud.
there was no like we only had 220 some people in our
Yeah.
graduating class, and there was just no there weren't any strangers. There were people that you
Yeah.
knew better than others, but there was nobody. It was small enough
Yeah.
um, that there just weren't any strangers. Like everybody knew everybody to a degree. We all had people
Yeah.
that we were closer friends with, of course, but it was small enough that we kind of like and
It
I,
wasn't a division either. You know what I
no,
mean?
no, it just it was we all got along.
Hmm.
There were issues like with any other group of people that just were, but it's cool to be around town, whether it's at the gym where I go to, or I'll get a call, a customer that I graduated with, and I'll go
Hmm.
in their home and sell flooring or be wherever in church. I run into people that
Yeah.
we graduated high school with. It's just yeah, there have been some people that have moved away, but a lot of us either have always stayed, or there are some like myself who've kind of come and gone and come back permanently. It's just the current weather today notwithstanding, it was 80 degrees 2 or 3 days ago, and it's like 55 and
Yeah.
drizzly. And I tell that's one of the things I tell people that are moving here. I'm like, well, if you don't like the weather, just wait a couple hours, it'll
I
change.
know. They'll change, right? But how about, what I like too? Our buddy Timmy Bryce, my
Yeah,
homeroom buddy Timmy Bryce. Shout out to Timmy Bryce.
yep,
I like on Facebook where he always puts 85 slash the number 4 slash, and then he
yep.
spells life like
Tells
LY.
everybody classmate. He's like,
He
I
does.
appreciate you, classmate.
I appreciate, and he means it. He means, I
Yeah,
appreciate you, classmate. I see that a lot of times. Our friends will be like, "I see you, classmate. I got you, classmate,"
yeah,
and it's almost like this brotherhood. Like we bleed the same blood, all of us,
yep,
and we got each other. And that is how lucky. How many people on this planet can say they have just a large group of people that would just put their hands around you in a second if you needed them? And that's what this is about. That's what I
yeah.
feel.
Yeah, our community in general is like that, but specifically our graduating class is very
Yeah.
very close without being overly involved. Some
Yeah.
of us have close friends, like you and Twig are
Hmm.
extremely close. You know, you've known Twig forever and a day.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's just something. And it's funny. I see Eddie Bishop at Hearthstone,
Mhm. Yeah.
and he he's always, and it's just I like Ed. I actually, when I did HVAC work, we did work at him in Edie's house quite a bit,
Yeah.
working on their system. So I kind of talked to him and got to know him a little bit. That I didn't know him well back in high
Hmm.
school, but but like we don't know each other per se, but we always speak when we're in the gym, and it might only be for like a minute, just in passing. But it's just, and I don't do that with everybody at the gym, but it's just this recognition that there's an 85 person, that
Yeah.
it's just kind of this courtesy that is just ingrained in us. That's like, okay, that's one of us,
Yeah, it's one of
quote
us.
unquote
Yeah.
us. Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And
Well, last night I was sitting there doing a lot of observing because I was exhausted. Because, I can usually talk people's ears off, which I probably still did. But anyway, I'm observing and I'm like, and I'm watching Twig has a thing of grapes and she's trying to throw them, in Ian Thompson's mouth or whatever. And I'm like, in Twig, then she gets competitive and she rears
right,
back like she's gonna nail him. And he's like,
right.
don't you nail me. And I'm like, this is so funny. Here we are in a little bit of a food fight, but we're also we've reached our middle years here. But how cool is it that we can still be childish and we're not getting old alone. We're getting
Still
old
acting
together.
like it's 85.
So acting like it's 80. Hey, we did have 80s music on last night.
Oh, I'm sure.
We did.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That reminds me, and I'll get to that. There was some cool 80s stuff in some of the movies I'm going to talk about later. So that reminded me of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like 80s on 8 is one of my program
Oh,
Sirius XM channels in my car. It's
and my
I go.
boyfriend is the guest DJ on Friday nights.
Oh yeah, I've heard it. Yeah, it's so funny to like hear him
Working class
talk about
DJ.
to hear him talk about other artists and be like, oh yeah, and he'll tell stories like, oh yeah, I toured with this person back in the day, and
Yeah.
I did this recording session with da da da. Da. That's pretty cool. I like listening to Rick.
Rick's my man. I'm gonna see him in July. It's been a while.
Mm.
But
So
yeah, yeah, yes, I
so
agree with
so even now it's so we'll kind of transition from what it's been like growing up in this area to kind of current times, and
you. Yeah.
give me some of your kind of like go-to places locally, that are kind of like self-care centric kind of things, places that you kind of um, that are part of your kind of self-care and kind of taking care of yourself routine locally.
Yeah, well, what's funny is last night I was talking about self-care as well. There was a friend there named Carla and she's actually with Eddie's cousin. And they live in Hawaii at the moment, but they're at home visiting. And we got into this whole conversation about self care, and she's gotten a yoga certification and a wellness coach certification, and she was talking about the same stuff we're talking about, Jay. Like, yeah, there's this medication, yeah, there's that, but we gotta get back to taking care of ourselves. And I'm like, oh, I love it. We're talking about
Right.
another person to talk about
Kindred spirits. Yeah.
to nerd out about self care, but so here locally. I think you and I probably have different places that we do our
Right.
self care, which is good because everybody has,
Yeah.
doesn't have to have the same thing. But there's the natural things for self care, like for me, which is nature. So we're close to water, which that is something that I have to have. I'm not
Right.
sure I could ever not live near water. We're fortunate enough to have a pontoon boat. My dad's always had a boat too. So I can get on the water if I need to, which there's a lot of times I need to do that. Or you can just get to it and look at it,
Yeah.
rather like today I was up in Kent Island and my mother-in-law and I were at the Narrows. Believe it or not, I've
Hmm.
never eaten at the Narrows.
Oh,
And
wow. Good food.
oh man, and we sat right there at a table for two on the water and I'm like, we're so lucky to be near
Hmm.
water. Now I could have used a little sunshine today. It wasn't out, but that's
Yeah.
okay. So I like to get to the water, and whether it's boating or in it, or I just water something that I need. And then Goodness, there's a lot of walking places around
Oh
town.
yeah,
We're lucky to have the rails to trails, which
trails
takes
everywhere. Yeah,
our old railroad, and it's a great paved path, and which is all over town, and it's just fun to walk around town now that you're going to be a in town guy.
in town. Yeah,
In town, I think you and I talked about this the other day, but literally walking as opposed to driving, you see things that you're like, Was that always there? I never
yeah,
even recognized that before." So I think it's a fun little town to walk around and see things and say hi to people and see different trees and flowers. When you're older, you see birds, trees, and flowers, right?
yeah.
um, and then there's the exercise people for healthcare. I'll let you talk about that, but I'm gonna let you talk about all the exercise thing. But I know that we just had a survey at our organization, and a gentleman was in from Atlanta, and he was looking for pickleball and found it.
Uh-huh.
Pickleball seems to be the thing to do that I
Yep.
wouldn't mind getting into, but I think a lot of people are into that. And then, I personally like to get my massage. I know there's a lot of massage
Hmm.
places. You like to do that
Yep.
too. I fought this for years, but now I'm in it. I
You
get
can
my
you
nails.
can shout out your place you go to.
Yeah, what it's Colin Perry. Colin, my goodness, what is Colin's place now? Isn't that terrible? I need to think about Colin's place. Besides, Colin Perry is my friend and she does my
She's
massage.
your masseuse. Yeah.
I'll have to look that up.
Okay.
It's near Chick-fil-A.
Uh,
So yeah, I need that, and there's tons of places to get your nails or your pedicures done. I know a lot of people like to do that for self-care. I do get my nails done, shamelessly get my nails done. And there's certainly shopping is a good retail therapy. I do
yeah.
participate in that.
Yeah.
We've got so many choices of eating around here.
Oh
I
yeah.
think even your Eat Sprout,
Yep.
is a good place, a good healthy place, and something different. We have so many choices. I feel we have a lot of choices,
We do the downtown area, which is kind of cool because I'm like 2 blocks from walking to
right?
the Tidewater or wherever downtown, and I'm like 2 blocks from Rails to Trails now, and so yeah, lots of different restaurants.
Mhm.
Actually, several gyms.
Tell
I,
me about those gyms. Where are those gyms?
well, the Y is kind of the Y is the Y. It's a YMCA here locally. Oh, did I lose Kathy?
Did I lose you? Sorry,
Yep,
I'm here.
I love. Oh, there you go.
All
You're
right, I'm good. I'm here.
back. Yeah, you heard Jim's and said, "I'm out." You said.
Yeah, right. Isn't that ironic? Isn't that ironic?
So yeah, but we've got Planet Fitness. That's pretty
Oh yeah,
new.
yeah, yeah.
I do Hearthstone, which is kind of a more upscale kind of. They do golf simulation. They have golf leagues and stuff where you kind of like you're on a simulator. You can kind of play different golf courses throughout the world on this simulator at Hearthstone. They do classes and whole 9 yards. Um, Easton's very well. The whole Mitchell area with all the surrounding towns is kind of it's kind of very walkable, very touristy.
Yeah.
You,
And don't you think
you
there's besides gyms for people like you, gyms. There, there's also like yoga studios
yep,
and
they're all
um,
over the place.
my
There's
gosh, sound baths and
meditation. Yep,
yeah.
meditation. Yes, all the above, and like you said, great restaurants. Um,
And we can't forget that we're only an hour, a little over an hour from the beach,
yep,
that
we're
beach
90 minutes from
therapy.
the beach. I go every year, and actually, mine's coming up in about a month. I'll be down
But
in about a month.
but you could day trip it. You could day trip it. Like
Yep,
I know when
absolutely.
I need a little beach time, that we're lucky to have the Assateague um parks where the horses are roaming around, and it's kind of a fun getaway.
We've
You feel like
got
you just found a deserted island in the
yeah.
off season.
We're kind of situated in a spot where we're an hour from the city in one direction. We're an hour and a half from the beach in another direction. We go even a little bit further out west. We could go skiing. Um,
Yeah. Somebody said one time that Maryland is like the whole country in one state. And something I never thought about until my Miami friends come up and they love it. My Miami friends love it here. And they'll say to me, what, you guys are lucky you have the four seasons. It gets so hot that they don't even want to go outside,
Right.
so they enjoy it. And another thing they say that I felt like we took for granted is how close we can get to places, because they're in South Miami and they're like, it's going to take you a good 6 hours to
Yeah,
get
it's there
out.
at the
Like
very bottom. Yeah.
they're kind of locked.
Yeah.
So, you're in Annapolis in 40 minutes, or you're at the beach in an hour and 15. You're in New York, or,
4 hours. Yeah.
Jersey, PA in a couple hours,
Yep.
Williamsburg in a couple, or I don't know if that's 2 hours. 2 hours to the base, the tunnel, right? Chesapeake Bay Tunnel,
Yes.
I think.
Yep.
So we're lucky, and I think we forget that sometimes, or I forget that sometimes, how fortunate we are to have some diversity in what we want to do.
Yeah, because we've got the beach, we've got mountains, we've got water everywhere. We've got rural, we've got urban. We're not real. Maryland's not one of the smaller states, although it's
It's
actually in the
huge.
middle population wise. Believe it or not. But yeah, it's pretty unique. And specifically in our area here, we've also got some kind of local themed museums. Got the Academy of Arts Museum.
There
We've
you
got
go.
the Maritime Museum, which is 15
Yeah.
minutes away in St. Michael's. Um, we've speaking of theaters and movies, the movie the Avalon Theater we were talking about earlier, who that used to be a movie theater is now
Right.
more.
I remember.
Yep, is now more for plays and
Yeah.
live
The
live stuff.
arts.
Yep,
They do a terrific
concerts.
job.
They do, and
Terrific job.
you have Matt Reynolds coming next
Hmm.
week on the 9th to um, do a public speaking engagement at the Avalon. They're
Yeah.
kind of they're involved in a lot of different things. Um, just a good place. It's small. It only has 400 or 500 seats total, but it's very cool, intimate, very nice, very historic. You walk in,
100 years old. Over 100 years old.
you feel like you're walking into like history. They've kind of kept that vibe.
Hmm.
It's just really cool place.
And
Um,
they always amaze me. I'm a big Avalon fan because they raise money, and they give back to the community so much. They're either in the schools giving productions to kids, or they're starting up their street concerts for the
yep,
summer, which you could walk right down from where
yep,
you are.
yep.
And that's really nice that they're able to not only raise money for the productions that they do, but to give back to the community in such a big way. I'm a big Avalon fan.
And the theater that I go to now kind of took over when for a while there was movies at both, and then the Avalon kind of transitioned to what they do now, and
Yeah.
the East of Premier Cinemas, which is where I go, is kind of taken over for the movie theater part of it. And I guess they started just before COVID. They started renovating, and they literally, Kathy, spent millions to renovate that. As you know, it's night and day from what it used to be. But
Yeah.
I
Because
spoke to
we
the
used
guy
to drive away, what drive to go to the good
to go
theater.
to a nicer theater. Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually spoke to the supervisor who was in charge of doing the project when they were renovating, and he
Oh well.
said they spent millions to renovate. They went from 4 screens to 6 screens. It's not a real big theater by any means. They're all each of the screens holds anywhere between 50 and 100 seats. But what they'll do is when they've got a big blockbuster movie, they'll have 2 screens, so you'll have you can.
Hmm.
But it's still very nice. It's small but very nice. Heated seats, reclining seats, um, just everything.
Affordable,
Yes, it's
Jay.
affordable compared to most everywhere else. And our
Yeah.
friend Chris Moore talks about that on his podcast, One More
Uh-huh.
Hollywood Podcast, and he
Excuse
talks
me,
about
another 85 classmate.
another class of '85. And I recommend checking out his podcast. It's called One More Hollywood Podcast. If you're a movie fan at all, he covers everything movies. Great.
One more as in Moore.
Yes. Him and his co-host do a great job of breaking down everything. You just got to check it out. If you're an entertainer or specifically a movie fan, check it out. But he was talking about just how expensive it is, especially for a large family, to go to the movies. Where
Yeah.
locally, it's not as much as most places,
Hmm.
but it's state of the art. I'm telling you, if you've not been to the new theater since they've renovated, it's worth it. It's so nice. Like I say, it's smaller, but it could not
It
be
is nice.
nicer. You know,
And get your rewards card.
get a rewards card. Yep. So every so once in a while, you'll get a free movie. Like I have a collection of free movies just accumulating on my card. So
So when you
uh,
take a big family, you get lots more rewards.
you do, and they
Trust
even do things from time to time where they will. You can, and they do it. They don't always do it, but they do periodically where they will do a month where they'll like separate one of the theaters, and you and your family can rent
yeah.
that theater and watch any movie, and it's you get
We
this.
did that before.
Yep, they did it during COVID. They were doing it to
Mhm.
kind of keep people coming in, but they were renting out one of the screens, and
So
it
you
was
could be with your
actually
own German people.
you can be with your own German people. You can it was a special the more people the less expensive it got per person.
Yeah.
Um, I actually had somebody in my family. Um, what I did was I had accumulated so many points that I gave them my that for as a gift, and they just kind of helped the theater out, and they loved it. It was I think they had like 12 people, and they all sat 4 seats apart, and we're all spread out in the whole screen, and did the thing. So, and like I said, they've put millions into upgrading the theater. It's super great. It's smaller. Don't let that hinder you. It's the seats are super comfortable. They recline. It's I could not recommend it more highly for anybody local that has not checked out the newly renovated theater. And it's not crazy expensive like if you were to go to it's
Yeah.
it's it's cheaper than driving to Annapolis and you're saving gas. So you're it's kind of a win-win.
And you
Uh,
can pick your seats online.
you can go online. You don't have to show up way early for a big blockbuster Marvel movie to get a seat. Go online. You can pick your seats. I always pick two, so I don't have to sit next to anybody strange. That's kind of my thing. But
Remember when you did have to go and you would have to get there early and like, darn it, I am not going to get a good seat.
I remember it wasn't that
That's
long
stressful.
ago. I remember this was right before they started renovating, and like the Marvel movies were big, and I remember I'd have to get there an hour early to get in line, and I would show up an hour early, and I would still be like
Yeah.
10th in line. I mean, which was still plenty to get whatever. Because I'm one of those that have to sit on the aisle. I don't like having to walk by people to get
Yeah.
out. Number one, and you're walking in front of them, they can't see. I just feel like if I'm on the aisle, I'm not really walking in front of anybody to go to the bathroom or. But that's just I'm weird that way anyway.
Do you want me to tell you the biggest my one of my biggest movies parent fail
What's that?
when the boys were younger in the older theater before the recliners came in and it was some big blockbuster packed. We're like smashed against the wall. I don't even remember the movie. It was loud, it was intense, it was good. Somebody's got to pee. One of the boys had to pee. And I'm like, I'm not taking him. I'm not missing the movie. And Marty's like, this can't, I'm not taking him. And I'm like, well, what are we going to do? And I said, I got it. We'll let him pee in my cup. So I had I had a dope cup, pulled it off. I was like, it's loud. Just let it rip. The movie goes silent. And all you hear is somebody peeing. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to get kicked out of the theater. This is awful. I'm an awful parent. I didn't want to miss that movie.
So
So
in other
anyway.
words, they got to put a sign
Yeah.
up.
Go peeing in the theater.
It said, "No, don't pee in my pool. Don't pee in my
Don't.
theater."
Gosh, I was like, I cannot believe this happened in the theater.
It's funny. I'm thinking back to the Avalon days, and the very first movies that I ever watched at the Avalon was a double feature of Grease and Saturday Night Fever. They did a
Hey,
back to back
ma-
double feature.
let me back up to my movie so nobody thinks I'm weird. The kid was very young. It was
Oh,
not a grown boy. It was a
he was
very,
like
very, very young kid.
16.
Almost a baby, okay? And nobody could see him. I don't ever think I'm weird. Anyway, go ahead. Grease double feature.
Yeah, Grease and Saturday Night Fever was the very first movie I ever watched in a theater ever, and that was a double feature at the Avalon way back in the day.
I saw Grease at, remember they had the drive-in in
Super 50
track?
Drive-In. Yep.
Yeah. And my parents took me and we were in a panel wagon and I was rolling around in the back of the panel wagon because I don't even know how old we were when that came out, but
Right.
probably too young to watch it.
Right. That was it. That I only went. I only remember going there a couple times. I just remember like putting the speaker, unhooking the
Yeah.
speaker, and putting it on your window. and
Yeah.
you crank your window down with the
Yeah.
crank and put the speaker. So only one side of the car had a speaker,
Yeah,
but
that's right.
somehow it worked. And then we learned like after like the second or third time we went to like park near the concession stand because it was a separate building,
Oh
like
yeah, yeah,
way
it
off
was
in the
separate.
back corner. So you'd have to like. And again, it was like you were like walking in front of people, like to go to the concession stand, but you're out like
Yeah.
outside walking in front of
I
people.
remember accidentally or maybe I was bored doing something in the back of the car went up and then you heard beep 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 beep. Nobody wanted you couldn't put your hatch up because then you
Yeah,
blocked somebody's view.
yeah, yeah. That was
Yeah, good
those were good
times.
days. And then I didn't do this myself, but I heard of kids like sneaking into the getting in the trunk to sneak in to watch adult movies.
Do they have them there?
They I never saw one, and I never snuck into a trunk.
I
But
don't know.
I had friends of mine that said they would, or at least that's what they were telling me. Maybe they were just telling me that so they would sound cool.
Yeah.
But it kind of sounds like something kids would do back in the day.
But didn't they start with I thought maybe some places, not locally, I don't think, brought that back, that the outdoor movies during COVID, but
Yeah.
I don't think that's stuck at all.
Well, yeah, they had actually had it here in town, and
Did they?
they had it. Oh gosh, it
Well,
was
I
like
think over by the
where the farmers market is across from.
yeah, you
Yeah,
know what? They still do some outside movies somewhere like that, but I mean where you park your car.
yeah,
But I think
yeah,
they still do offer movies outside for kids in the
yeah,
summertime.
yeah. But yeah, the whole theater, like you and I were talking earlier or yesterday about the kind of the theaters are in danger of kind of
Oh
going
yeah.
away because yeah, that's another conversation. And maybe we'll get Chris Moore on one of these days,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we'll talk movies about him and get some really cool stories. I know
Yeah, because
we're going to try to have Liza on next week and get into how
hmm
music, like some really cool movies that have music in them and how music impacts movies and that kind of thing. And maybe she'll have some cool Hollywood insider stories
oh yeah, she's fun.
next week for us.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, let's transition over to the movie section of our episode. But first, let me do a little shout out for Foremost Massage and Spa. 25 years of experience providing a variety of wellness services to make you feel your best. Whether you want to feel good physically, mentally, or emotionally, this is the place to go to relax your mind and heal your body. The licensed massage therapists are compassionate, leave you in a relaxed, meditative state. Their newest addition to the wellness spa is their Halo Therapy Salt Cave. The cave provides a calming environment, reducing stress and anxiety. Listen to relaxing music while you lay back in zero gravity chairs, wrap up in one of their cozy blankets. Engulf yourself in their natural Himalayan salt floors and wall, inhaling the pharmaceutical grade pure sodium chloride. The salt cleans out your sinuses and respiratory system. Besides the relaxation effect, the salt is good for allergies, asthma, COPD, and helps diminish the symptoms of colds. It's also good for skin conditions like psoriasis and eczema. And you can now have a promo code of EST24 that you can go online to foremostmassage.com and do the promo code, and you'll get 20% off a Salt Cave spa treatment. So go see Julie at Foremost Massage and Spa. So my Friday night movie this week was The Fall Guy
Oh
with
yeah.
Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, and it was actually pretty good on my 1 to 10 scale.
Yeah.
One being terrible, 10 being super, and 5 being average. It was probably 6.5. It's above average.
Okay.
It's a nice, fun, kind of lighthearted, funny, good cast. Surprisingly, some good music. Speaking of music and movies again, I'm starting to like pay attention to the music in movies a little bit more. Um, but it's got some '80s music in it. There's kind of one '80s song that kind of plays in the background throughout the movie. That's by a very actually at the time one of the most famous rock bands at that time. So it's a very famous song, And then there's another song that they do that they sing in a karaoke scene in the middle of the movie.
Oh,
That's
really?
another 80s song. Um, that's actually it's a theme song from another movie, but Emily Blunt's character sings this song in this karaoke scene. And Emily's actually is actually a singer as well.
I
Um,
didn't realize that.
yeah, so she does a pretty good job. So I would say it's worth going seeing. It's a nice, good, solid movie. It's fun. It's funny. Got some good music. Um, just kind of a lighthearted fun. It's got some action in it, so it's got a little bit of romance. So it's just a nice, good, solid movie to go see.
I watched a
And
little segment with them, Jay, of those two with that movie, and then the person interviewing them said, "When you watch these movies, can you tell that your stunt double is not you?"
right,
And they're like, "Oh my God, absolutely." They're like,
yeah,
"Absolutely. I know that's not me." But
yeah.
I thought that was an interesting, because we would never know,
No,
right?
it actually gives a kind of a neat. It's kind of an homage to the stunt workers who are kind of go unnoticed in the
Mm-hmm.
making movies, especially the big heavy action movies where there's a lot of stunts involved. Um, it kind of it pays homage to those folks, both men and women, who do so many stunts that kind of are behind the scenes. They don't get recognized with awards during award season, that kind
Right.
of thing. Now, of course, the actors and the actresses, know who they are and are grateful, but the general public's not aware of. They're aware that stunts happen and that the actors don't typically do their own stunts for the
Yeah.
most part, but they're not familiar with maybe who they are. So it kind of gives it's a nice tribute to kind of the stunt workers in the movie industry. It's just a nice, fun, good movie.
I thought that they said too that there's one scene in there where a car's rolling.
Breaks a
And
record, yes.
yeah,
Breaks
right?
the record for most rolls
Yeah.
done. Yep, and yes, that's kind of a big point in the movie. And it was
Oh, it is?
yeah,
Like, though it really did break. Did it really break a
yes,
record?
it
Okay.
actually happened. The guy, it's without giving too much away, the guy who does the actual stunts for Ryan Gosling, who's playing the stunt man in the
Yeah.
movie, actually did this stunt,
Oh,
and it
wow.
actually in real life broke a Guinness World Record for most times a car rolled in a
Yeah.
movie scene or whatever. So yes,
So he got out of that car a little dizzy, saying,
oh
"Yeah."
yeah, it's just cool and how it kind of pays tribute to that, and it kind of gives you some behind the scenes tidbits of kind of what's involved with the stunt teams on these movies. So it's worth watching. It's a good one. I
Okay.
was looking forward to going to the movies yesterday more so than most weeks because it's been a stressful week with me moving. I was just the whole moving process just sucks, and I was just like I was counting down Friday night movie time. So it was even more so a self care activity for me last night than it normally would be, and it hit the spot. It was like having a
Nice.
good meal or whatever.
Mhm.
It hit the spot, and I was like, oh. But I wanted to talk about something else that I watched the other night, and it's that new Anne Hathaway movie on Amazon called The Idea of You. And I've been
Mm.
seeing it everywhere. Of course, Amazon's so big and they
Yeah.
advertise everywhere anyway. So I'm like, man, I got to check it out. And it finally came out, and I watched it. And another one, a really good movie. It's a movie about a mother in her 40s who meets this guy who's a pop star who's in his 20s, and
Hmm.
they like they dig each other, and they're trying to like navigate like should we be together and should our age difference, and she's an art dealer and he's a pop star and he's traveling, and she's kind of a stay-at-home mom, just recently divorced, has a teen daughter, she does.
Oh.
So just really good and how they navigate the whole thing, but really cool how the movie starts out, and you'll love this. We talked about this the other day. Speaking of people from Easton,
Oh, yeah.
the opening credit scene and the ending credit scene, the song is by none other than Easton's very own Maggie Rogers. The song's called "Light On." It's her big hit so far, and it was just so cool. I had no idea it was going to be the opening song to the movie, but it plays during the opening credits and the ending credits, and there's a so the music's really good. There's another scene in the middle where um, these two have kind of like they're on this rendezvous over in Europe in a hotel, and they're having fun. He's writing music and he's trying to get inspiration, so he plays some '80s music. So they kind of enact the video to this '80s very popular '80s song that I won't give away. Um, but again,
I
this
have to watch this.
it's really
It's
good.
called what? The
It's
idea
called
of
The
you?
Idea of You, and
Okay.
it's Anne Hathaway's the main character,
Okay.
and her love interest is played by a young actor, and I don't. I'm hoping I'm getting this right. His name is Zach Galitzine, kind of a new up and coming actor. He's been on a couple other things,
Hmm.
um, so he's been around. He's just kind of younger, kind of starting to branch out into some bigger things. But yeah,
Huh.
just they were very good together. Yeah, it's just kind of a fun. It's fun and funny, but yet it's got some serious topics. The whole, I'm newly divorced and I've got a teen
Yeah.
daughter. Should I let her
Yes.
know I'm dating somebody 24 years old and I'm 40? Um,
Mm.
so there's all of that. So
Mhm.
there's that whole, there's a serious vibe to it, and there's obviously romance and
Yeah.
um, she feels insecure because she goes on tour with him and all the other members of the band. It's this boy band, and all the other members are with their girlfriends, and they're all like 25 ish, and
I
she's
like this.
40.
I probably like
So
this movie.
yeah, she's trying to navigate that, and she already feels insecure because her ex husband has moved on with a younger woman. So there's that whole
Mm.
dynamic. So there's a lot to it, but yet it's
Yeah.
fun and funny. But yet
And good music. All
yeah,
right. I'm gonna
good
check that one
music.
out.
But yeah.
I'm gonna check it.
So you're still doing the Ted Lasso. I've been rewatching Ted Lasso in preparation for our
Am
podcast
I the
episode.
slowest? Am I the slowest streamer ever? Gosh.
Well, you got a lot going on, not only with work,
Third
but like
season.
yeah,
I'm
it's baseball season, so you got a son playing baseball, so you're traveling all over the midshore with that. So
Hey, did I tell you we got a home run the other night?
but you did not.
We did. I wasn't there, so a
Oh
kid hits a
wow,
home run when I'm not there.
was that in Easton or somewhere else?
Queen Anne.
Okay,
Yeah, I was
yeah, they
excited.
don't. Home runs are pretty big deal in high school because they don't happen
Yeah.
very often.
No, none of my other boys got home runs in high school, so the baby happened to do it when I'm not
Wow.
there. So rude.
Now, did I see a picture of Tristan and Twig's
Yeah,
daughter at some
yeah,
formal in Salisbury?
yes. Isn't that nice? They're friends.
So,
So
what,
friends.
what was that formal? What was that
So our
event?
babies went to a dance together. She's in a sorority.
Oh, okay,
So they had some at Salisbury. So he went down and went with her, which was really nice. Yeah.
cool. Because I was like, I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know the story, so I was just. I know your families are close, so I didn't.
Yeah.
Just kind of it
Yeah.
felt like
He said he volunteered to be her plus one.
gotcha.
Yeah. So got to have some high school reminiscing this weekend. Tristan went to a dance. My son's fiance picked out her wedding dress
Mm.
today for next year's wedding. So all these things happen, and I'm like, whoa, wow.
Now, which one of your sons is engaged again?
My oldest,
Your
Brennan.
oldest, Brennan. Okay,
Hmm.
and his fiance's name is Hope.
Hope, yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I remember meeting her at Halloween.
So June of next year they'll be married, and then I'm gonna feel like I'm older than I am, I
Oh
think.
wow.
Even though people our age are already having grandkids, but yeah, we're that age. Wow, it's kind of weird.
And Jaden's in his second or third year teaching.
His first year. This
Oh,
is
his
his
first year.
first year,
Okay.
fourth grade.
How's he liking it so far?
Yeah, I think these children of today are a little different than they're not putting their head down playing 7 Up these days. So he really enjoys the school system here, but I think navigating some of the challenges of kids today is,
I was going to
as a
say
young person,
his
is a little
perspective.
challenging.
He's probably it's probably
Like,
pretty cool in a way where he's like, now I get it. Where he's like he's seeing it with 30 kids in a room, and he's
I
like,
know,
oh,
right? See what
so
it's
he's
like to be
probably
a parent now? See
yeah.
why
So
we're all so
yeah,
mean?
but he's probably learning a lot about like himself and growing and how he
Yeah.
interacts with having to be different in how he interacts with different students and different students' needs and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
Being a
but
teacher is no joke.
no, no,
It is not an easy job.
and I'm
That's
sure
for
it's much harder now than it was the teachers that we had back in the day. It's much harder. I'm sure.
yeah, some of the stuff we have some good stories from back in the day. I don't think today's
Yeah,
stories are going to be the same.
I
Some of
can
our
say we weren't the nicest to substitute teachers all the time.
but the
Um,
substitute teachers we had, whoo,
now,
sometimes.
we had some that were really fun, and we knew that when they came in as substitutes, we're like, oh, this is a day off. They're really cool. They were probably
Right.
younger than the teachers we would normally get, but there were some that were just like they were like not having it. They would come in and just take over, and
Yeah.
we would resist in our own belligerent teenage ways, and
Well, and you and I have talked about speaking about this in another podcast, but technology is a whole new thing when
yeah,
you're in the school system, right? And it's a challenge.
yeah, we're gonna talk about social media and how self care is related with social media in one of these episodes coming up. I think next week we're going to have Liza Ledford back and
Hmm.
um, do a fun movie, a whole entire movie episode again, and get into, like I said,
About music and movies, right?
yes, specifically. Of course, we'll. I always like to hear those juicy Hollywood insider stories,
Yeah,
so we'll
yeah,
probably
yeah,
have
yeah.
them as well. But and that was kind of her recommendation, and her and I both got that idea from her brother's one of her brother's
Mhm.
episodes where they talked about that, and it's just and I think ever since I saw his podcast, I've been paying more attention to how music is involved, and
I'll
it's
tell you Jay, when I first noticed movies having music, that music was selling the movie for me personally, and
yeah,
we obviously we can talk about it next week, is kid movies. Somebody got
yes,
really smart, and I can't remember which movies first started having that, but of course, and Disney was a master at it. But
yeah,
when cartoon like movies started having more adult themes and
right,
music that we tuned into, so the kids, you're not just taking, it's not just a mom taking, a couple kids in the neighborhood. We're like, heck, let's all go because this is
yeah,
awesome.
because the
So somebody
music
got
is for the
very
adult,
smart.
yeah. And I just remember, just real quick, like back in the day, the movie soundtracks were like they were like sometimes they were like the biggest selling cassettes
Oh,
or the
heck
biggest
yeah.
selling records, like the whole soundtrack. They would
Oh,
have. Now
yeah.
I'm sure that a lot of movies still have soundtracks, but we're
What about
just not.
Grease? You just talked about Grease. I
Yeah, and
mean,
Saturday Night
I,
Fever.
and now that I'm back to buying the records for $1 million more than I paid back in the day, because your parents sold everything at yard sales back in the day. I swear, everything I can't find. I'm like, you guys sold it. You didn't even ask me. You sold it in a yard sale. So I'm buying these records again, but I'm still looking for the soundtracks. Right? I'm going
Yeah,
back for because they're gonna have the most songs on them.
yeah. And it's funny. I liked a lot of the soundtracks. Top Gun was a really good soundtrack. The original Top Gun, that
Oh
was good.
yeah, yeah.
But it was funny. I would listen. I would buy the cassette and get the soundtrack, and I'd be like, "Wait a minute! I didn't hear that song on the movie." There would be like
Yeah,
songs that
yeah,
were on
yeah.
the soundtrack that you never heard in the movie.
True. That's true.
Um, so,
Or I swear sometimes you'd hear a movie and or a song and it wasn't on the soundtrack, and I'm like, wait a second, didn't I hear that in the movie?
and they
I
kind of would go hand in hand. The movie would help sell the soundtrack, and then the
Yeah,
soundtrack would
it's
get people to go to the
true.
theater and watch the movie. It was. I don't
Yes,
think that's as much the case anymore because
I agree.
well, and it's
You're
partly
right.
because nobody buys albums in any form really anymore. So there's not
Except for us that are stupid and buying them for $30 instead of.
there are soundtracks for sure. They still, but I don't think they're not advertised. They're not. That'd be a good one to ask Liza next week. Like, does every movie have a soundtrack, or are there just certain movies that nowadays have a soundtrack? Like, um, oh, what's the one with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper? A Star is Born.
Stars
It
Born.
did have a soundtrack, but
Yeah.
there was so much music throughout. It was about a singer, so it was about music. So that would make sense. But I don't know that, like,
Well,
you know,
every movie has music, right? Every
yes,
single movie has music.
yes,
So But the good question is there truly a soundtrack? I mean, there's got to be a soundtrack, but is there a public soundtrack
Yeah, and
for every movie?
is there a list of songs that are considered
Yeah.
soundtrack, or is the soundtrack just the background music that has no lyrics that we hear?
Because you've seen
Yes,
those soundtracks.
like with Star Wars, that dun, dun,
Yeah.
that the John Williams background music
Yeah. Yeah.
that is on the movie soundtrack, but it's not on a public soundtrack. If that makes sense,
Right.
that'll be
Right.
something to talk about with Liza next week because that fits perfect with that topic for next week.
Yeah. And the Guardians of the
Oh
Galaxy
yeah,
appealed to our 80s hearts.
and it fits so perfectly because Star Lord has that had the
Oh
old
my gosh,
that
right? He
had the
like you.
old
He looks like you right now with the headphones on.
yeah, but what oh it's not an MP3 player, but he had whatever it was that he was
Yeah, he had a little cassette.
yeah, but one cassette
Walkman,
it was
Walkman.
Walkman, yeah,
Yeah.
and he had his playlist, and it was all like
Well,
70s and 80s music, and yeah,
here, I'll never forget walking into the very first Guardians of the Galaxy because I had not researched that very much. And, we're huge Marvel fans like you are too. So, whatever, whenever it happened, we're like, yeah, let's go. Let's just go see this. And we went to Annapolis movie theater at the time because they had better movies than we did at the time.
yeah.
And I remember being in the back of the theater. I'm like, wait, what? What? And I'm like, yeah. I'm bouncing and I'm like, I had no idea. This is the smartest thing anybody could have ever done. They sold that movie to me. They sold it, and I would have gone back 100 times.
It probably got you to go see part two
Oh
because you knew
heck
the
yeah!
yeah that
I'm
was,
like, I gotta hear the next tape. I gotta hear the next tape.
and I'm sure although in those series of movies with Marvel they were also interconnected, you were probably going to watch it because of that anyway because
Right.
part of the story was the
Which is
bigger
what got me there
yes,
but
but
I
yet
had no idea the music was more for me and I
yes,
have all the soundtracks and I've rebought them on albums.
that's the only one of the Marvel movies that I can remember where the music is so impactful that I remember,
Yeah.
um, because it's such a part of who Star Lord is as a character. It just fits in the story. So yeah,
And you and I offline could nerd out a little bit, and I could say, "Oh, Southern Nights, Glenn Campbell. What scene in the movie?" Like
right,
I can remember.
right. Now see, I'm not. I don't go that. I don't remember that so much most of the time.
I can tell you on those movies. Maybe I've watched it too many times.
Now, if you say a song, I can say, "Oh yeah, that's from such a movie," but I can't
Yeah,
necessarily say it's from the scene where dot 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 dot. Sometimes, like say anything, the boombox scene, the Peter Gabriel song, and that's so classic.
yeah.
Yeah, there are
I had to
some,
think about that. Yes, I did see that movie.
and the Rocky when he's running up the stairs, and
Oh yes,
so there's so many that are like that I do remember the scene
yeah. Mm-hmm.
because it fits so much with what's going on in the story,
Right.
and they go hand in hand so well. But that we'll get into that with Liza next week.
It's
That's going to be
exciting.
a really fun episode. And then, like I say, hopefully down the line we'll get Chris Moore on himself, and then we'll kind of talk about some stuff that maybe some stuff that he's been talking about on his podcast, and then
Mm-hmm.
some a different aspect of some insider Hollywood stuff, and that'll be cool. And it'll kind of be nice to have an old '85 classmate on, um, that's been doing some big and wonderful things out in Hollywood.
Yeah, sounds
All right,
amazing.
all right, guys, that's about it for this week. Hope you guys have enjoyed it, and don't forget, guys, to check out if you have not already a member of the Eastern Shore Talk group on Facebook. Go to groups in Facebook and then type in Eastern Shore Talk group. You get some great self care stuff there. Um, just a lot of support, a lot of people kind of telling their stories, just a lot of just fun stuff as well. I talk about movies a little bit there. Um,
Some
I had
positive affirmations, maybe.
yeah, one of the members of the group the other day posted, and they said, without naming the movie, just post a GIF of a movie you've seen more than 5 times. And I bet probably 50 people responded with GIFs of different movies but you automatically knew what the movie was just by the GIF without having to sit to name the movie. That was pretty fun. So there's a lot of self care stuff, but it's a lot of fun. We talk about, I mean, just you name it, we talk about it. Just a lot of support there, a lot of information. Um, just everybody's experience is kind of shared there in a safe place, and you're bound to learn something. So check it out there. And also, easternshorttalk.org is our website. Go check us out there. There's a scheduled events when we do our in-person sessions. We'll pop up the schedule there. If you're looking for resources for whatever you may be going through, there's a good list of resources there that connects you to wherever you need to go. So hope you guys have had fun as much as Cathy and I have had, and we'll see you next time. Take care, guys.
See you later.